Modern Insurrection. How to Foment Disobedience with an Eye for Style and the Air of a Classicist. Okay, so here we go. Steps for being your own person and encouraging others to be your own person with you. Review of old-time contributors to this school of thought, both fictional and, for dang's sake, real. So these are people that have actually contributed to the idea of civil disobedience, the idea of trying to establish a framework under which it's okay to challenge the existing regime or government type under which you live. The importance of folks establishing who serves who and the populace government. Oh, let me go back there. Dang it. There we go. The importance of folks establishing who serves who in the populace-government relationship. Just kind of went over that before. List of activities that might aid your endeavor as inspired by fictional protagonists and antagonists, and some real-life existentialists. A warning about certain activities that might end you up in the slammer, because of course we want to avoid those, and a review and summary time to conclude. So, authors of discontent, and or 5 of the people that we've gone over this semester that have either advanced a narrative that in some way, shape, or form provides a rationale for civil disobedience, or in fact did that exact thing in some sort of manifesto or treatise. So, authors of discontent, because getting along with everyone all the time is boring. And we have a nice quote there from Sartre. Herman Melville, who gave us Benito Cereno, and in the doing created 2 characters who have kind of juxtapositional but opposing takes on the reality that they share. That'd be Benito Cereno himself and Babo. And of course, Babo being not portrayed in the most sympathetic light as per Benito Cereno in his account. We never actually get Babo's reality. But, you know, when you're subject to slavery, you do what you gotta do. Anyways, we'll go over that in a bit. Edgar Allan Poe, don't take no guff off reality. Never. I think it's important to never trust to the fullest extent that everything you believe you're experiencing is in fact bedrock reality, without constantly kind of returning to the idea of assessing it. Because as we know from things like eyewitness statements, 2 people can be party to, subject to, witness to the same crime and give 2 completely different takes on what it was that they witnessed. Thoreau, resist being civil. It's pretty straightforward. He kind of just tells us when he thinks it's justifiable and kind of gives us a framework to, in fact, engage in civil disobedience. William Apis, dissent through empathetic connection. Of course, he gives us a very powerful the Indians looking glass for the white man kind of account of his take on the relationship between the 2, and then his appeal to the white man to see his Native American brethren as something more than just an opposed or disenfranchised, marginalized people. Frederick Douglass, fire and dire and prose-bound poetry. Of course, he's just a powerful writer, very passionate. Of course, we'll go over that too. So, different kinds of insurrection, examples by author or character. Not all forms of civil disturbance are created equal, and you should be aware that the results are often commensurate with your efforts. So true, the more you put into just about anything in life, the more you're going to get out of it. That's just pretty straightforward. Sometimes just publishing a thoughtful treatise on societal discord that hipsters can wear a shirt with quotes from is enough. It's a little unclear, but basically, you might end up writing a truly thoughtful and magnificent piece that will stand the test of time, and then 100 years down the road, there's some people with god-awful facial hair typing on god-awful typewriters in coffee shops around the country with quotes from your work on t-shirts that they wear because they want to seem cool and relevant. Sometimes I wonder how much the people who wear those shirts actually know about what it is that they're displaying. But it's not something we need to know here. Now, of course, another type of insurrection, sometimes you need a lighter. That's probably one of those things that'll end you up in jail you might want to avoid, but there you go. Thoreau and how-to guides. Once again, that's just a comment on his treatise. Helpful and user-friendly, and there you go, t-shirt compatible right there. Douglass brings the passion, and so he does. Explicit remonstrances, I mean, he talks directly to in his consideration of what something like the 4th of July would mean to the the African American peoples of the U.S. and how, they're conceptualization of freedom is going to be vastly different from people who are celebrating the 4th of July, often right in front of them. And that's just, it's not very, it lacks perspective. And he just, he brings the passion. It's evident in his writing, it comes through, and it makes it all the more powerful. Sympathetic message, it is that. Balbo and armed insurrection leaves little room for confusion. Perhaps the most strident form of disobedience, what with the killing and whatnot. Now, of course, that's when you start going about throwing off the tyrannical yoke of your oppressors, in terms of, say, something like the Nat Turner Rebellion, and or, when you just get down to the Civil War, when we decided this is not acceptable, this practice, it leaves little room for misinterpretation of what you're willing to do, the lengths you're willing to go to change the narrative, to flip the script, as it were. So, just very straightforward when you start up with a killing. Okay, Melville, a narrative comment on unacceptable practices, thus Balbo. In Benito Cereno, Melville gives us a tale that might be about relative perspective, but is probably about justifiable homicide when you're faced with a life of unwarranted servitude. Slavery is an awful institution. Balbo is just doing what he had to do. And then a quote, "You are saved," cried Captain Delano, more and more astonished and pained. "You are saved. What has cast such a shadow upon you?" The Negro. And of course, that we have, we have kind of a testament to the impact that Balbo and his statement made on Benito Cereno, the fact that he was never the same after, and he perished not too far down the road. Now, I tend to think that's because of more than just the death of his friend and a lot of his crew. I tend to think it's also because he saw, and this is just my own interpretation, he saw what the effect of the system that he was a part of had on other people. When you create monsters, if you are at all rational and have a conscience, and you're party to what the monstrous acts that these people that seem just like you and me were capable of, sometimes you have to examine your own part in the process that brought these people to that point where they thought such a practice was acceptable. And I feel that that's one of the comments that Melville was presenting us with, was the need for the people who are part of the functioning machinery of slavery to examine their own part of it. And of course, when you create a system that completely oppresses and enslaves people, there's only so far you can push people before you see a self-correction, before the pendulum swings, and before they take matters into their own hands to address that position that you've put them in. So, and now to the next one. Edgar Allan Poe, Fall of the House of Reality. So in Fall of the House of Usher, we have two main characters. We have Roderick Usher and then the narrator. Now, within that context, or within that fictional universe, Roderick Usher is explicitly insane. We're told this by the narrator. So we have a couple of things here. When life gives you an unpleasant reality, Lemon, make some custard, and then inter it early in a mortuary vault so that later it can seemingly come back from the dead and cause you to question your sanity. Of course, Lemon Custard being the sister. To an anomalous species of terror, I found him a bounden slave. That would be Roderick. That's one of the explicit examples. And then also, really stick it to reality by becoming incapable of distinguishing between it and stories read aloud. Sometimes you got to stick it to your own brain. And of course, sometimes you do have to question, I believe, the bounds, your own definition of reality and or sanity. They say that only the truly insane never question whether they're in fact insane. And then there you go, the part about not being able to distinguish. Not hear it? Yes, I hear it and have heard it, which was Roderick kind of interposing the story that the narrator's reading aloud to him, kind of not being able to differentiate between that reality. Then we have the narrator. Okay, so here's the thing. Sometimes it is better not to trust your own senses if those senses go rogue and start to tell you that you're in some foul pocket reality all covered in yucky tarns. I was actually going to go with grody tarns, but I wasn't sure if everybody knew what grody was. I'm not sure if that's a regional word or what. I heard it in San Antonio, and I'm pretty sure most people would understand what a grody tarn was, even if they don't necessarily know what a tarn is. But of course, that's something that's discussed in the very beginning of the story. The narrator does, in a sense, defy his friend's assessment of reality. This is necessary on occasion, as if you're in a duo and one of you thinks they're a slice of meatloaf, you might have to establish which one of you is crazy, and that means asserting your belief for all you're worth. If you're talking to a person who feels that they are a slice of meatloaf, as per not getting into some sort of conflict, you might not want to go ahead and dispute that they're a slice of meatloaf, but you might just want to establish that you yourself are not one to yourself. And then if they start, I don't know, trying to cover themselves in ketchup, at that point you might definitely want to assert your assessment of reality, which is they are also, in fact, not a slice of meatloaf. He's a good man, and thorough, as it were. You know, for a guy that looks vaguely like a garden gnome, Thoreau is a pithy, quotable, smart SOB. One of his classic texts centers around the idea of helping to redefine a government that you find unsuitable in terms of the rule it provides, be it too much and exacting or just unjust of law and the application thereof. And then a quote, I heartily accept the motto that government is best which governs least. He also advocated for government to exercise no hold on a man at all, and should you find yourself in such a circumstance, well, fret not, friend, there's a handy manifesto, it's supposed to say handy, just for you. Give resistance to civil government a try. He asks you to be citizen, you need in yourself to be. Do not fail him. Also, get the title, it's a movie reference, but which one, I leave that to you to figure out, and then just a couple of handy little pictures. And some quotes, under a government which imprisons any unjustly, the true place for a just man is in prison. Which I guess is an assessment of that if you haven't actually taken a stand about the imprisoning of people unjustly, then you're not your own self just, because you should make your position clear that this is unacceptable, and if the price of that is to in fact be imprisoned yourself, then no little than that is asked, no less than that is asked of the just. The price of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it, which is pretty much just ties into the idea that if you're willing to go to prison because other people have been imprisoned and are not, that's not a just thing for them to have had done to them, then you're willing to pay that price. And sometimes some people have to take the hit when you're fighting for a societal change that needs to be implemented, that must take place. Unfortunately, the front line on most movements, there is sacrifice involved. And now, of course, that comes down to how you want to define yourself. If you feel that that is something that you need to do in terms of sacrifice, then, well, you know, the price you pay for not sacrificing is your own peace of mind, which is too much, I think, in anyone's life to not be able to live with yourself. Now, for this guy, I just went ahead and wrote a lot, just because I felt I was putting in a lot of pictures, and I wanted to deviate from that a little bit. So here we go. William Apis. This man is one of my two favorite on here, and he serves as a good lead into Douglas, who is my favorite, because they share a way with words that is distinctly their own, a pleasure and a gift to the reader, and serve to put passion back into persuasion. Apis, in his An Indian's Looking Glass for the White Man, makes a well-worded and reasoned appeal to the white man to forge an empathetic bond with those he deems inferior, and blithely denigrates and subjugates, in order that through a more nuanced understanding of shared humanity, he might back away from the awful practices that torture those whom he has already liberated of their land and culture. What I particularly like, though, is that he is not afraid to call out the white man for his deeds, and in his recounting, call them to task for some ways that are truly despicable and bordering on evil. Now suppose those skins were put together, and this is a quote, now suppose those skins were put together, and each skin had its national crimes written upon it. Which skin do you think would have the greatest? I will ask one question more. Can you charge the Indians with robbing a nation almost of their whole continent and murdering their women and children, and then depriving the remainder of their lawful rights that nature and God require them to have? Of course, he goes on from there to state that the skin in question that would have, of course, the most crimes written upon it would be pale in complexion, would belong to the white man. I have an honest and earnest respect for Thoreau, but if sorry, let me try that again. I have an honest and earnest respect for Thoreau, but if any presented for your consideration here are truly capable of making a just claim upon a grievance worthy of willfully resisting and possibly overthrowing a system of government, it is Apis and Douglas, and they do lay bold possession upon that claim with panache and brio. I love brio, it's a great word. Apis is worthy of being read and demands to be read. For all those who would claim to be patriots, a full understanding of the land you profess to love is nothing less than a